Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a look at something that, well, it completely transforms the UK landscape almost overnight. We're talking about snowfall.
It's a brilliant topic, isn't it? Because it causes this really intense dual reaction in people. You see those first flakes, and there's this immediate excitement, a sense of magic.
Yeah.
But then, almost at the same time, you get that sharp feeling of dread about, the school run, the trains.
The inevitable travel chaos.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So our mission today is take all the sources, the climate data, the geographical studies, and really extract the true story. We want you to walk away from this understanding not just if it might snow, but why it snows in very specific places and what's actually controlling that.
And maybe we should set a quick baseline. Just what is it we're actually talking about? I mean, snow forms when temperatures are low enough, at or below freezing typically, and water vapor in the air condenses directly into ice crystals. These little crystals then clump together, they aggregate into flakes, and when they get too heavy, they fall. But that's where the simplicity ends, really, because getting those exact conditions to line up over the UK is a masterclass in atmospheric complexity.
So we're drilling down into the geographical, the atmospheric, and I guess the practical reasons for UK snow, why it varies so much depending on your postcode and what it all means. This is your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
Right. Let's start with the map.
Okay, let's unpack that variability first, because the sources make it so clear that treating UK snowfall as one single national event is a huge mistake.
It is. The geographic differences are monumental.
So what's the biggest factor?
The most crucial takeaways are altitude and latitude. It's that simple. If you look at Scotland and the highest parts of northern England, places like the Cairngorms or the Pennines, they consistently get the heaviest and most frequent snow.
So you're talking about a completely different winter experience up there.
Oh, fundamentally different. We're talking weeks of sustained snow cover sometimes, proper conditions for winter sports.
Whereas if you head down south, say, to the coast of Cornwall,
You might get a light dusting, maybe once every 5 years, and it's gone before lunchtime.
and that brings up the coast, which is another key point.
Yes, the idea of microclimates is essential here. Our sources show that coastal areas generally see far less snow than places just a few miles inland.
Why is that?
Well, the sea is warmer than the land in winter. It holds on to its heat for longer.
Okay.
And that warmth has a moderating influence right on the coast, just enough to keep temperatures that tiny bit higher.
So it would be snow just a few miles inland, hits the coast, and it turns to rain.
Precisely. The complexity starts right at that local level. It's not just north versus south, but
Yeah.
coast versus inland, even hill versus valley.
And looking at the calendar, when should you really be prepared for this? What's the main window?
The primary window where you get that reliable mix of cold air and moisture is between November and March. The sources really pinpoint that 5-month period as the peak season. Of course, you can get odd events earlier or later.
A bit of snow in April isn't unheard of.
Exactly. But it's that winter core where the serious disruptive snow events tend to happen.
And this geographical difference really matters because it just dismantles that idea of a single British weather experience. It tells you that whatever national forecast you hear, you have to filter it through your specific local knowledge.
It forces a respect for the local climate. Preparedness in Aberdeen looks completely different to preparedness in Bristol.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've mapped out the where and the when. Now we have to get into the engineering of it all. What are the specific atmospheric ingredients needed to actually make it snow here beyond just it's cold?
This is where it gets really interesting, because snowfall isn't some gentle accident. It's a chaotic convergence of huge global forces.
Okay.
The simplest definition is you need cold, wet air to meet directly over the land. But what forces them to meet over a relatively small island like the UK?
It's a three-part recipe, isn't it? And it involves things happening thousands of miles away.
Exactly. The first and honestly the most crucial driver is something called the North Atlantic Oscillation, the NAO.
You can't understand UK winter without it.
You really can't.
So let's unpack the NAO for a second. Simply put, what is it?
Okay, think of it as a gigantic atmospheric seesaw.
A seesaw.
Yeah, stretching right across the North Atlantic. It's all about the pressure difference between the Azores High, which is down near Portugal,
Right.
and the Icelandic Low up near Iceland.
Okay, so a high-pressure system and a low-pressure one.
Exactly. And when that seesaw is balanced, what we call its positive phase, it drives the jet stream north. And that gives the UK our typical mild, wet, windy Atlantic weather.
Which is why we often complain about it being too mild and rainy in January.
Precisely. But when the NAO slips into its negative phase, that seesaw tips. The westerly winds weaken.
And that opens the door.
It opens the door for the crucial second ingredient to pour in. Cold Arctic air from the north or the east, sometimes from as far as Siberia.
So the NAO is like a giant switch in the atmosphere that lets the deep cold in.
It is, but cold on its own just gives you a really hard frost. It doesn't necessarily give you snow.
You're still missing the third ingredient?
You still need the moisture. So once that Arctic air is in place, you need moist air masses, usually coming up from the Atlantic, to collide with it.
So the wet component.
The wet component. And when that moist, milder air hits the freezing Arctic air mass over the land, you get this massive uplift, condensation, and the precipitation falls as snow.
So you can almost picture it. This huge, heavy blanket of freezing air swings down from the north. And then this warmer, moisture-heavy air from the Atlantic runs right into it or underneath it.
And that collision zone is what produces the snow. The severity of it, whether it's a light flurry or a crippling blizzard, depends entirely on the intensity and duration of that clash.
And that explains the unpredictability. It's not a gradual cooling. It's often a violent collision of two totally different types of air,
forced together by that larger NAO mechanism.
And that unpredictability leads us straight into the real-world consequences, doesn't it? That dual impact of snow, the immediate logistical freeze versus the longer-term benefits.
Yes, and we have to acknowledge that for many, snow is first and foremost an infrastructural headache. The logistics freeze is swift, and it's costly.
Transport is always the first casualty, isn't it? Every single winter, we see the same reports. Roads become treacherous, obviously, but the railways and airports really struggle.
They do. Rail lines are notoriously sensitive. Freezing temperatures cause mechanical failures, problems with the points.
And it just leads to massive delays and cancellations across the whole network.
And with airports, you get immediate ground stops because of de-icing. But it's the ripple effect that's so critical.
What do you mean?
Well, when transport stops, schools close. Not because of snow in the playground, but because teachers and staff can't physically get there.
Right. And businesses suddenly have to switch to remote work.
It creates this enormous chain reaction, all from that sudden inability to move people around.
And beyond just the inconvenience, there are real dangers. We're not just talking about the deep snow, but that silent danger of black ice on the roads. Accidents just spike.
And we have to consider the elderly and vulnerable who might rely on services that are suddenly slowed down or stopped entirely by the weather. It's a serious issue.
That's the practical cost. But if we shift our view from the train tracks to, say, the fields and forests, the story really changes.
It does. Snow provides some really critical environmental upsides.
Here's a question, though. Water replenishment happens when it rains, so why is snow specifically so important for that cycle?
That's a great question because it's all about the timing of the release. First, snow acts as this highly effective insulator. That blanket of snow actually protects the soil and the dormant plants, the roots and bulbs, from much harsher, deeper freezing temperatures.
So it's like a natural duvet for the ecosystem.
Precisely, a thermal layer. And for water, when rain falls, it runs off very quickly. When snow falls and builds up, it locks that moisture in place. Then in the spring, it melts slowly, gradually, over days or even weeks.
A controlled release.
A controlled release. And that's essential for recharging groundwater levels and preventing flash floods. It's vital for our natural water supplies.
That's a fantastic takeaway, that structural role. And then, of course, there's the sheer joy of it all.
Yeah.
The collective delight when the country gets a proper snow day.
It's irreplaceable, the chance for sledding, for skiing in the few places we can, or just a spontaneous snowball fight.
Yeah.
These moments are cultural highlights. They break the routine, get people outside, interacting with nature in a way they rarely do the rest of the year.
And this is where it all connects to the bigger picture, because we have to talk about climate change. Our sources get into how these broader trends are influencing this really delicate dance.
And it presents a really profound paradox. Because average global temperatures are rising, the total number of days cold enough for snow in the UK is expected to decrease.
So fewer total snow days.
In theory, yes. We may see fewer opportunities for that snow magic.
But that's not the whole story, is it?
Not at all, because warmer air holds significantly more moisture.
Huh.
So while the frequency of snow events might decrease, the intensity of the ones we do get is expected to increase.
So when the cold conditions finally do break through,
They collide with an atmosphere that's supercharged with moisture, capable of delivering far heavier precipitation.
so less snow overall, but when it hits harder.
Exactly. More unpredictably. And it could cause even greater disruption because if it's less frequent, our preparation levels might be lower.
That concentration of intensity is the real future challenge.
And that increased unpredictability means that regions that historically only saw dusting the South, the Midlands, now need to be ready for potentially significant high-impact events, even if they only happen once a decade.
That's a huge shift in thinking. Let's pivot, though, to the aesthetic side of things, because no matter the science or the logistical nightmare, snow just transforms the UK in a way that goes beyond the data.
Oh, the experience is transformative. Walking in fresh snow, that profound stillness you get when the snow absorbs all the sound. The world just goes quiet. Watching the countryside turn into these vast white landscapes or seeing the trees covered in frost in the morning light, it's why people cherish winter.
And when you see it draped over historical places in the UK, it's really something special. You know, Edinburgh Castle dusted white against a gray sky, or the medieval walls of York just silenced by a fresh layer.
It turns everyday streets into postcard scenes. It's a moment of environmental reset that reminds us that nature can still pause modern life entirely.
Which brings us back, full circle, to the practical side of that power. Safety and preparedness, especially with that unpredictable intensity we were just talking about.
If you're going to embrace the beauty, you have to respect the science. It's that simple. Always check a highly localized weather forecast before you travel, not just the national picture.
And physically, it means layers.
Appropriate layers, gloves, hats, and especially waterproof boots. They're non-negotiable for staying safe and comfortable.
And if you are doing those winter activities, be safe. Sledding should be on open hills, not near roads.
You want to maximize the joy and minimize the risk. Preparation is just about that. Maximizing the beauty, minimizing the disruption.
So when we pull this all together, what does it mean? We started by exploring the huge geographical differences, from intense snow in Scotland to sporadic dustings in the South. We then found out that's all governed by the complex atmospheric engineering of the North Atlantic Oscillation.
The big switch.
The big switch, which controls how that cold Arctic air and moist Atlantic air collide.
So our deep dive shows that to understand UK snow, you have to look beyond the thermometer on your wall. You have to understand the global drivers that force those air masses to clash right over our island.
And that knowledge is the key to seeing why these events are both beautiful and so fundamentally disruptive. And the final provocative thought for you to consider is this: the tension between the science and the future uncertainty.
As climate change proceeds, that very mechanism that drives heavy snow, the instability of the NAO will likely lead to fewer total snow events.
What?
But the ones that do occur will be more intense, less predictable, and will demand a higher level of preparedness across the entire nation than ever before.
The science of how snow forms is reliable.
But the timing of when it will transform your world is becoming radically uncertain.
A perfect summary of the tension between the magical and the practical. Thank you for diving deep with us today. Until next time, stay curious.